Anyway, so a lot's happened in the last 2 weeks since we've been gone, since you've been gone. Um, and yeah, I mean, we'll just cover some NFL news today. We'll do a little bit of mocky mock because in about a month, I really wish that we recorded these things like for how stupid we are as a group. It's so fun. I love when we got together last year. Um, but yeah, so we have our fantasy draft in about a month. This will be like a little bit of a preparation. Some people are going to be already doing it within the next few weeks, probably because preseason starts 2 weeks from yesterday, um, which is actually really crazy to think about. Thank God football is back.
I've just always preferred doing redrafts because no matter how bad you were the season before,
Mm-hmm.
it always gives you a fresh start. Whereas when you do like dynasty leagues,
Yep.
my team was pretty bad last year, and I'm expecting more of the same this year. And it could take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get out of a hole through trading and redrafting. But that's why I like fantasy redraft leagues because
Mm.
you just
I
go
get, I,
into it with a
I
fresh
get that.
start.
Dynasties are my favorite because I just love the idea of like even if you suck, like you can still then it becomes like the process and strategy of like rebuilding. So you trade away like the valuable players that can get you the most draft picks, or like in the rookie draft, for example. Like I don't know how easy it'll be to do this or if anyone will want to, but I will try to trade out of the third pick that I have, to try to get more draft capital, you know, down the road. And if you like keep doing that, like a lot of like I explained it actually in the last video, when I was talking about like dynasty strategy, like tearing down is actually a really good idea. I did it when I traded you Dalvin Cook. I traded you and I got a huge haul, and then rebuilt my team, which was like fine, but I wasn't gonna make it anywhere. But anyway, I understand the redraft though. Redraft is, I mean, I hate it and I love it. I hate it because uh, as I was going through the archives, now that it's active again for the ESPN, um, and man, I averaged fourth place, which I feel like is pretty pretty on point there. And then I averaged the seventh pick. I just can't get a good pick. I haven't had a good pick. I haven't had a pick above number five. Let's above number four. I haven't gotten a pick above four since our first year playing when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And
Let me ask,
Adrian Peterson hurt himself second
let me
place.
ask, let me ask you this: do you think there's such a thing as a good draft pick when it comes to redrafting, and you have just say a 10-man league? Because obviously,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on a 10-man league, because if you do an 8-man league, your team's going to be stacked. If you do a 12-man league, your team's not going to be as good. It's a little bit tougher. So 10's perfect to do a league. 10 people's perfect to do a fantasy
Yeah,
redraft league. But do you really think there's such thing as a good pick? Because
I do.
yeah, you could say the first pick could be the best pick, but then it's like there's no guarantee because like last year, Ryan took McCaffrey
Yep.
and his team was garbage. I think he had the worst team in the league, and I
Mm.
remember he had some great picks, taking McCaffrey and then taking Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown back to back in the second and third rounds. Like those are three great picks out of the number one hole, but he ended up with the worst team in the league, a lot of it due to injuries. And then I'm pretty sure on the opposite end of it, Sam somehow always gets the 10th pick. And
Yeah.
I
8 to 10.
forget I forget who he took, but he ended up
No,
winning
he
the
he
he ended up
had
winning the
number
league.
he had number 4 or 5 or something like that this past year, or three. He was up there this year in his pick.
Yeah.
He because I was at number 8, I think.
Well, let's you know what
I
before you answer that question for me, because we're gonna get into fantasy and just kind of
Yeah.
this year. Let's talk about some of the latest news,
Okay.
latest headlines.
And then I'll explain while we're going through our mock draft why I do believe there is an advantage. Like I think there was an advantage last year, and I think there's usually an advantage, but we'll talk about that soon. Do you want to get into the news?
Yeah, we've like I said, we've been gone for 2 weeks, so there's been some older news we can catch up on. But the latest news, as of a couple days ago, was the Arizona Cardinals signing Kyler Murray to a 5-year, $230.5 million extension.
Yep.
And this extension is long overdue, but I also just I have some issues with it. The reason I say that is because if you remember, after the Cardinals lost in the first round to the Rams, there was
Mm-hmm.
so much speculation on Kyler's future with the Cardinals. I
Yep.
mean, they got absolutely manhandled in that game,
Yes.
rightfully so, because the Rams went on to be the Super Bowl champions. The
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals just had nothing going for them in that game, um, and Kyler just even looked like he wanted to be out there, let alone be on the team. And I think there was just so much controversy in the offseason of, are they going to keep Kyler? Is he going to go somewhere else? And that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because if you think about where he came from, how he's a Heisman winning quarterback coming from out of Oklahoma.
Yep.
He was literally seconds away from being a Major League Baseball player
He was the
after
sixth pick.
being the sixth pick by the Oakland Athletics. And then he goes on to be the first overall pick by the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL draft. So they just put so many chips in for him.
Yep.
He made such a big career decision. He made the right decision, but he made a huge decision coming to play in the NFL, playing for the Cardinals. And then after all that, just because he had a bad playoff game and things weren't quite working out, they're talking about getting rid of him. I think it was just kind of such a slap in the face. I think people think Kyler's overrated, maybe just because of how small he is, but he's just so athletic. He has so much to offer. I think you can't, write him out just yet. So this extension, I think, kind of proves that. And it's going to be tough this year for him without Hopkins in the first 6 games, but don't really think James Conner is going to put up the numbers he did last year. I don't even know if the Cardinals will be a playoff team this year, Jay, but I think definitely locking in Kyler for the next 5 years, unless things go south and they trade him in the future. It was the right move for the organization.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that's like, what other direction could they really have gone in? Like Kyler is, I mean, let's just call spade a spade. He's a premier quarterback in this league. He really is. He's terrific. Like when he was first coming into the league, I really liked Kyler. Obviously, his size is always going to be a concern, but he's so, like you said, he's so athletic. He's so quick. He looks like a toddler running, like for candy. His feet move so fast, but he's a really talented thrower too. And I think it'll be really interesting when he's reunited with Marquise Brown. Like I wonder how good they'll be together with Zach Ertz and Rondale Moore, hopefully taking another step forward. Even before Hopkins comes back after the suspension. With that being said, like their team reminded me of the Steelers from 2 years ago, where they were, like Steelers, if you remember, this was Chase Claypool's first year. They were like one of the last remaining undefeated teams, and then they went on to be humongous disappointments, lost immediately. They were not good, like as a team. They just had a really like easy schedule, and I'm not saying that was necessarily the same situation, but it was the same idea of like the Cardinals were really, really good in the regular season, but it seems like every year they fall off, like in the playoffs, every single year. This year they should have won, but they didn't. And like you said, it looked like Kyler didn't even want to be out there. But they had to do this, and I think it was the right move for their organization. You have to pay your quarterback when he's, of this talent, of his caliber. The players like this come like once every generation. Like he's athletic, quick. He makes the defense, like freeze in their feet, and he can bomb the ball. And he has a legitimate deep threat for the first time, really, on it, like in his career. You could argue like maybe Andy Isabella, but he was pretty garbage as a second round pick.
Who was the Arizona wide receiver that you drafted before? He was always like a deep threat, but he wasn't ever like consistent. You know what I'm talking about?
When did I draft him?
I don't know. In past years in fantasy, you drafted. I'm trying to think of his name. You like drafted some wide receiver who like wasn't good, but he would always give you like 2 catches for 80 yards every game. He was like a deep threat. I'm pretty sure he was on the Cardinals.
There was a Cardinals receiver years ago, JJ Nelson. John Brown was on the
I
Cardinals.
think maybe
also.
John Brown. I'm thinking of
Smokey Brown. Smokey
John
Brown,
Brown.
I'm pretty sure was on the Cardinals.
John Brown on the Bills, though, right?
He was also on the Bills. I'm pretty sure Smokey Brown was a Cardinal at one point. John Brown, Cardinals. I'm curious.
Who's the wide receiver you always draft who always gets hurt?
John Brown. Will Fuller.
Will Fuller. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, John Brown was on the Cardinals. Will Fuller is my fantasy darling, even though he's somehow still unsigned. I guess that's a piece of news. So last year, he fractured his finger.
I was who wants them with the constant injuries and just PED problems.
Yeah, the only season he was healthy was PEDs, and every other season he got hurt. Gotta love Will Fuller. Even though no one will take a chance on him.
Take a chance.
Take a chance on me. ABBA hits too. ABBA is also a bop. Anyway, so should we move on to our next topic? This one I think is kind of interesting because you really have to kind of consider this in fantasy football. And you took a swing on him last year. It did not work out.
Swing and a miss.
I have swung on him also. I swung on him last year too in a different league. Did not work out. Mikey Thomas. It's been about 2 years since he's actually stepped foot on the field. It was always like a very odd situation. He refused to get ankle surgery and take the advice of his trainers, which was so stupid. So he tried to rehab it himself. Obviously, it didn't work and he needed surgery still. So it set him back. Then he had a setback. Last year, he was going what you got him probably what? Actually, you reached on him, didn't you?
I reached on him and I took him in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, because I was gonna do the same thing in the 8th. Because when Michael Thomas is healthy, people probably don't even remember. He was unbelievable. I had him in 2016.
He broke so many records.
Him with Drew Brees was elite combination.
You just have to weigh the risk versus the reward when it comes to him because his upside is just so tremendous. He's so talented, but clearly he's not going to be. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but clearly he's not going to be 100% when he's ready to play. And I don't trust Jameson. It's not the same thing as Drew Brees. The Saints just seem like they're falling apart. They're not. The Saints are not marching in, as they say, with Kamara potentially his season being up in the air.
I can't believe that hasn't been a ruling yet either.
Yeah. So it's just with me is my biggest thing on redraft leagues and fantasy is, and I learned this the hard way last year, as you kindly pointed out, you can't take guys who you're not 100% on. That's just my opinion. And
you mitigate risk.
Huh?
You mitigate risk.
Yeah. And it's just despite how good Michael Thomas is, despite how good Hopkins is, that's half the fantasy football season right there that Hopkins is going to be missing. And
so that's a really similar situation, actually. Excellent.
I think you have to take guys who you can count on, or at least you have a good feeling towards. So even if that means, passing on these guys and trying to wait for a 11th or 12th round pick for them, which they're most likely not going to last that long. But
you have to have your own evaluation.
Yeah, if they do, you get lucky. It's a no-brainer. You stash them on your bench. But if not, you let some sucker like me take them in the 6th round, and could cost them their season as it did mine.
Michael Thomas could go in the 10th or 11th round this year. I mean, so the news is that he opens up on the PUP, which, I don't think should have been much of a surprise. I think he only really started running routes a month ago. I don't know. I'm pretty iffy on him myself. Like you said, I learned this a while ago, but basically don't find injuries. Injuries will find you, right? So I don't need to go after a guy like Michael Thomas who has not actually played a season healthy for 2 years.
Your players will get injured for you anyways.
My players constantly get injured. It's probably again because I take Will Fuller every year, but yeah, I mean usually players always get hurt, especially mine, and if you take Michael Thomas, they'll just probably add to the list. I mean, he looks healthy in like the videos he's posted on like Instagram and whatever, but I feel like, it's different than actually having full contact, and I'm curious to see how he'll play. And as you said, like, I mean, there's more weapons now, I feel like, than there ever were in New Orleans. At Drew Brees' like, when he was throwing to Michael Thomas every single play, it was him and Alvin Kamara. It was like a funnel concentration between those two. And then they had like guys who were meaningless, like Traquan Smith and, different guys that weren't really anything. But now they have Chris Olave, they just drafted in the first round. They have Jarvis Landry, who's no scrub. They have some options now. And Jameis Winston, we'll see how he plays coming. I feel like everyone forgot that he tore his ACL. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, moving on to the next one. We'll just talk about this next one real quick.
Yeah,
the other day, the Browns were working out AJ McCarron and Josh Rosen, which is just like not great options. That kind of reminds me of like when you do a season in Madden and your quarterback goes down and you have to go to the free agents to find someone and you see these two guys there. That's how I feel. But the Browns ended up signing Josh Rosen to a 1-year deal, I think, just to add some depth to their quarterback depth chart, because right now Deshaun Watson, it's not looking great for him just based off of how I feel. And even though all these cases are being dismissed, I just think the league is going to it's not a good look for the league. So I think the league's going to put their foot down and suspend him out at minimum half the season would be my guess. And obviously,
I think so too.
He's gonna take it to court and appeal that. So who's their backup?
Right now it's Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brisket. And obviously they're not going to get too far with him. So it's just funny if you look at the line changes. I remember when I was at your apartment and we saw the news of the Deshaun Watson deal. I think it was within 24 hours of Devontae Adams being traded to the Raiders. But, we saw Deshaun Watson go to the Browns, and I'm sure in that division, the Browns, their line shifted for them being one of the favorites. And now I'm sure it's just going to be heading backwards after everything that's been going on.
They're either going to be a really good team or they're going to suck.
Yeah.
And there won't be any in between.
And Brissett and Rosen aren't going to help them. So their season rests upon Deshaun Watson and the millions of dollars he was just given.
That's a whole nother can of worms. So I don't want to get back into that. And we'll see what Sue Robinson decides.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of older news, but obviously the Browns officially lost Baker Mayfield going to the Carolina Panthers, which I think was a big win for them. I never thought Sam Darnold was the guy. So, those two goofballs will be competing it out for the starting role. But I think Baker and, DJ Moore, McCaffrey could provide some spark this year if they're all able to stay healthy and handsome.
It's kind of insane that this is without a doubt the best quarterback DJ Moore has ever played with. That's so sad.
Which is crazy because he's averaged 1,400 receiving yards in the past 4 or 5 seasons.
He's so good. Yeah. I love DJ Moore so much. It's just like, his touchdown luck is not there, and he's played with terrible quarterbacks, like so bad. It's just would you have ever thought that a number 1 pick and a number 3 pick would be battling it out in camp? Like, that's so wild. That was 2018. That was only 4 years ago. That's crazy to me. And they're both, I actually think I've said it before. I think Baker's actually not as bad as everyone thinks. I think he was hurt last year and he kind of got screwed with a matter of circumstance. And I think if he didn't play, he would be valued so much higher. But he tried to play through injury. So I think the Panthers actually easily won that deal. And they gave themselves a shot. They only have one shot because
one opportunity
to seize everything you ever want. Yeah, Matt Rule is done if they don't play well. So
100%.
We'll see. I mean, their O-line is improved, but still not great. Their defense is probably their best. It's probably their best. But also, I feel like this needs to be said. What do you make of like Robbie Anderson, everything he said about Baker Mayfield coming to the Panthers and now them being teammates?
I mean, you and IJ are two pretty stubborn people.
Uh-huh.
So if I was Baker Mayfield, I'm not throwing the ball to him once. And
Yeah, me either.
if I have to kind of sell it, I'm throwing it over his head
Me too.
just to prove a point. Like, we're gonna win and we don't need you to win. I never liked Robbie Anderson anyways.
I don't think Robbie Anderson's that good. I mean, they have DJ Moore. Maybe Terrace Marshall takes a step up, which is pretty hard not to because he was so garbage last year. Anyway, moving on from other really good receivers, Scary Terry signs his 3-year, $68.36 million extension. He deserves it. He's the entire team. I love Terry so much. It's such a disappointment that he's on that team.
Yeah, I put him and like DJ Moore in that same field. They're the two stars on their team.
Pancakes.
They're both so talented. Their teams need them. So, you know, that contract for Scary Terry was long overdue. But
Yeah,
you know,
I was thinking that.
he's going to be under the hands of one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Carson Wentz. So
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna have to see if he can get him the ball or not.
Yeah, we'll see. He like Terry always will have a place in my heart. I love Terry. I think one of the coolest things is like just to prove how shit his quarterbacks have always been. Last year, like, don't you remember that catch where his body completely contorted?
Yeah.
Like, while he's running full speed down the field, like he's so unbelievable. I love Terry. I hope Carson Wentz is good. Honestly, it would be better than anything that they've ever had. So I would be rooting for that, to be honest. And moving on, so back to quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, very interesting scenario, but he is winning himself so much money by waiting. That, you know, there's some contract uncertainty. He's at Ravens training camp, so that's good. He's too much of a team player to not be, and I think he's willing to play this year, even though he doesn't have an extension.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have an agent, so he's betting on himself completely. But he's everything he's doing, even though you would have highly criticized it like 2 months ago before Deshaun Watson got paid the most money in NFL history. It's like it's really working out for him. Like the fact that Kyler just got that extension, like he should be asking for maybe even more than that because the Ravens' entire offense is tailored around him running, and he gets beaten up every play. So I mean, you know, Lamar is electric, and I'm really looking forward to him coming back this year healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it showed last year, and this is with most teams, but it showed last year with, you know, the first half of the season how good they were, tail of 2 seasons, and then once Lamar went down, it all went downhill. So we were talking about this in his MVP season when with how much he was running. We're like, he's gonna get hurt at some point.
Right.
Sure enough, he does. Cost them the rest of the season. Cost them the Ravens season, and
they still played pretty well though with Tyler Huntley.
They did all right. I mean, they were what?
They were like
they're
7 like 2 games out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and then they took, you know, some risks on some controversial 2-point conversions, but
they did that so many times.
He's their franchise quarterback, so he's worth the money. Hard to see him in another team's uniform, so big trust.
Whoa. Well, let's keep going with the Ravens because this is part of it too. Is the J.K. Dobbins stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he and Gus Edwards obviously both tore their ACLs in like consecutive weeks last year.
Yeah, that was crazy.
We thought Gus Edwards was going to be the starter. I remember Sam drafted him, and then immediately after that, he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
What do we make of Dobbins also opening? Oh, actually, I don't think that's confirmed. If he opened, you know what? Never mind. He didn't open camp on PUP. But there's conflicting reports. There's conflicting reports of like what Ian Rappaport tweeted, and then J.K. Dobbins tweeted at Ian Rappaport, "Come to me if you want a source." I was like, oh damn, okay. I don't think any players actually broken that like fifth barrier before.
Yeah,
which I love.
As of right now, it seems like he's not like a green light to go for week 1. And for how good he was, when he played a couple
He
of
was
years
really
ago,
good.
that was his rookie campaign.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a playmaker. He's a difference maker for their team, and he definitely needs to help out Lamar because after losing Hollywood Brown, the Ravens don't have too many options other than Mark Andrews.
They're going to run that ball almost every play.
Very aggressive, run first team for sure. So we'll just have to wait and see. How
it was like that a few years ago, if you remember. Actually, when J.K. Dobbins was a rookie, that was their plan. Like every play, they ran the ball almost, and that at that point in time, we all were like, Hollywood is trash. Like, he never got the ball, so we didn't know.
Yeah, but we will have to see. But talking about some other players quickly who
let's just
looking for contract extensions coming into the year. Darren Waller will probably get one. He's looking for a contract extension with the Raiders. And then obviously the biggest one is Deebo Samuel. And it kind of seems like, I guess maybe I'm thinking this from recent news I might have heard, but it seems like he's going to be a 49er for at least one more year. But he's obviously not going to report to training camp until he gets a juicy contract extension. What do you think is going to end up happening with that?
I don't think they have a choice. I think they've missed their window to trade him, and I think they have to pay him. I mean, he really was a difference maker for them. People don't really remember this, but because there's so much recency bias. But Deebo Samuel was hurt every year except for last year, which is why no one saw that breakout coming.
Yeah,
he was used in such a unique and dynamic way. We'll have to see. Like I'm interested to see what if anyone can do it, it's the Niners to replicate success. But it's kind of, it's going to depend on like what he wants to. Does he want to be utilized like that again, or does he want to be more of a receiver? He's built like a running back, so it made sense that they used him in that manner. I think they're going to pay him. I think they have to. I don't think they have a choice. Like after Terry got paid, like the only one of that group that we know isn't getting paid of those receivers that, whatever. We're not 100% sure about DK because, they're in a rebuild, but I think they will pay him. And I think the one that won't get paid is Deontay Johnson. The reason I think that is the Steelers have done this time and time again, where they just don't give a shit about their players. Le'Veon Bell is a perfect example. They wanted to run him into the ground. He held out, and they said, okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing with James Conner. I think that Deontay's gone, but I think Deebo is getting paid. I do.
Yeah, it'd be stupid not to give it to him. I think they said he's like they're calling him a full wide receiver now. So they're not putting him in that wide receiver running back.
Like Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, I think they did in fantasy, but he's
just I think good. I don't know. I don't really know how the cap works on this, but I would guess that once Jimmy G is traded, that next domino would be Deebo.
And that's another point to bring up because Jimmy G is expected to be fully cleared by August after his offseason shoulder surgery. So what do you think is going to happen with that? Do you think they definitely ship him off, or do you think they use him as a backup? Because it's not 100% that Trey Lance is going to be the starter, is it?
I think with how much draft capital they gave up to get Trey Lance, I don't think they can go into the season with Jimmy G as a backup because he's still the leader of that team.
Yeah.
So they have to trade him. I don't know how much they'll get for him. I don't even know where he'll really go. Like that makes sense. The only place that makes sense is the Seahawks, and I think the Seahawks are tanking so they can get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Will Levis or one of those guys next year.
Yeah.
Or Anthony Richardson. So I don't think it really matters to them. So I don't know where he'll go, but I don't think he's going to be a 49er. I don't think he can be. They have to give the keys to Trey Lance, see what they have, and if he's not good, then he's not good. But they gave him in many interviews and stuff like that. All of his teammates, Fred Warner, Kittle, they're all hyping him up. Saying Trey Lance has taken many steps forward and whatever. You see like these videos with him and Ayuk and stuff, and I think he's going to succeed. Honestly, I hope. I have him in Dynasty, so hopefully. But I don't think Garoppolo can be on that team personally.
I agree with that.
Yeah, just because he's the leader, you know what I mean? Like he has been the last 4 years. So when you're handing the keys to someone else, you can't keep him as a backup. That's my thought process, at least.
Yeah, I agree on that. The Bucs signed Kyle Rudolph to a 1-year deal, gives Tom Brady another target, but he's kind of old, so I don't really know how.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph is absolute trash on the Giants, so
rightfully so.
Makes sense.
And then, and then the Jets signed Breece Hall, just one of the rookies to be signed to their rookie deal. He got 4 years, and then
there's some rumblings that Breece Hall will be the number 1 pick in our rookie draft.